How's everybody doing this morning? Good. Thank you all for coming. We'll have some folks trickling in, but I wanted to get us started in just a few orders of business. We are actually recording today's. We are successfully recording because Paul is amazing and has got us set up for that. So we'll be able to post the video of this online. And then we're going to also offer a CEU for this so that you'll get it afterwards, and all of the professional development trainings that we provide will have a CEU attached. And so if you were a part of prior trainings, you can pick up your certificate from Paul per my last email, and we'll try to make sure that we have them available on the day of. This one will be available probably next week, but you will get a CEU, so make sure that you sign in so that we know that you're here. Okay, so I have the distinct privilege of introducing Dr. Craigan Usher, and I want to formally introduce him because his resume and background is just as impressive as his personality, and which I think you all should know about. So Craigan is originally from the Pacific Northwest. There's not many native Oregonians. We are, yay. And he graduated from Georgetown University School of Medicine. Then he completed his general psychiatry training at the Harvard Longwood Program and Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Fellowship at Mass General in Boston. And after 1 year of practice in Chicago at the Rush Neurobehavioral Center, where he practiced or participated in research in social emotional learning, Dr. Usher joined the OHSU faculty in 2008. During his training, he was awarded a fellowship through the American Psychoanalytic Association, and his teaching reflects this as he continues to pursue the links between the neuroscience of empathy and attachment in child psychiatric practice. Dr. Usher has published numerous textbook chapters and authored book reviews for the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, Psychosomatics, and the Clinical Social Work Journal. He is currently the director of the Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Training Program, and those are just some of the more professional aspects of him. But personally, he has 2 beautiful children, a wife, and is a wonderful human being. So I'm lucky to know him and glad that he's here today. Right, that's the real important stuff. The other stuff is just bonus. So we want to welcome, if you all can join me in welcoming Dr. Craigan Usher.
Thank you, Alicia. It's terribly embarrassing. And, directly unimpressive, except for I think my time with my kids and my family. And I do love living here and practicing here. And I'm thankful to be here today. I was going to talk about psychodynamic psychotherapy, and I hope that that's an appropriate topic. So I'm going to tell you what I plan to talk about, and then what I'd love to know from all of you is what you'd like us to talk about today, because we can, I'm really happy to deviate from script. So this is what I plan to do in about an hour. 10 objectives. To define psychotherapy, my son was in the bathroom this morning shouting to me, "Hey Dad, what are you doing today?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go to volunteers." "What is that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know exactly." So that's one thing I would really like to know from you. I'd like you to define Volunteers in America for me, just so I know. And then what I would also like, so I said, "I don't know, I'm going to ask them." And then he said, "So what are you going to be talking about?" I said, "Psychotherapy." He's like, "Well, what's that?" And so so I feel like I've already given this talk once this morning through the bathroom door. So I'd like to define psychotherapy. I'd also like to hear about maybe what each of you do who are on the room, just so I make sure that what I'm talking about today and what we're talking about is connecting. I'll give you a psychotherapy concept map. Just want to talk about some Freudian fundamentals, the things that I think remain pertinent, and we're going to disregard things that I think are not. We're going to talk about Anna-Freudian fundamentals because I think his daughter was really infinitely more practical than he was. We're going to talk about some of the virtues of what we call psychoanalytic psychotherapy or psychodynamic psychotherapy. We're going to fast forward to something I often talk about, which is mentalizing. which is a fancy way for talking about empathy and empathizing. And then finally talk about some criticisms of psychodynamic psychotherapy. So first of all, can you tell me about Volunteers of America?
Yeah, so how about we have our...
I was thinking if we went around and introduced you, begin with me and I'll tell you all about
Excellent, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'll start. Alicia Moreland here for some of you whose faces I haven't seen, Chief Medical Director for Volunteers of America work.
My name is Noel Shinley. Do you want to know what I do for Volunteers of
I
America?
would love to know, yes.
So I work with Home Free, which is the domestic violence. They work with domestic violence issues in our kids groups.
I'm Paul Craigan, and I work here in the admin building doing operations.
Gil Sykes, and I do part-time admin as the EMR specialist, but I'm also the clinical director for the Women's Residential Center, which is addictions, mental health, criminogenics, and women with small children.
I'm Trish Hamilton, I'm Director of Development and Communications, so I work on fundraising and our internal and external communications.
I'm Erna Walter, and I work here at Admin as an administrative assistant.
Corridor Medeiros, I'm the addiction specialist out of the Multnomah County Rockland Clinic.
Elizabeth Sherman, Division Director for Children and Family Services. We do a variety of different things for children.
Lauren Kaufman, Division Director of Outpatient Treatment and Prevention.
And I'm Greg Cousin, I'm the Community Monitoring Program Director. I work with juveniles who would otherwise be in detention until we monitor them out in the community.
I'm Bill Diaz. I work here at administration. I'm part of the fundraising and development team here at Volunteers of America.
I'm John Ing. I'm the controller. I work in finance accounting. I'm the father of 2 kids.
I'm Margie, I'm a relief teacher for the different drop-in childcare programs.
Director of Development, Communications, and others, and team.
His parents, Kate Duran, and I'm the CEO here at Volunteers of America. So why don't I start with sharing with you who we are. We're a very old faith-based human service organization, unbelievably 119 years old, March. And we're 119 years old in this community, which is surprising to a lot of people. But we're broad-based human services. We were founded out of New York and incorporated in New York around prisoner reentry rehabilitation program. And what Mabu, who was the wife of the founder of Volunteers of America, said to the warden at the time is that if you continue to incarcerate these individuals and you don't have a rehabilitation program, they will be right back once you let them out. So you fast forward 119 years and we're exactly in the same place because we haven't done a very good job of rehabilitation on the inside. But what we have done here at Volunteers of America strategically to focus on our strengths, we focus on evidence-based practices that really change behavior. So we have a children and families program with some specific programs to support that kind of change agenda. We also have a rehabilitation program that's focused on single adults where we do residential drug treatment and also day treatment for that same population. We developed and perfected our reentry program that in large part is dependent on our practices when it comes to substance abuse treatment, but also the wraparound services that we know individuals need once they're being released from long-term incarceration and need to come back into the community. And then the most exciting part of, not exciting to me, but exciting part of our change agenda is working on, in partnership with Providence Health and Services, for an adult-based service program, and that's for the frail elderly. So they have the first and only program that really responds to the aging population here and importantly, it's a Medicaid, Medicare program. And what we do in partnership with them is to provide adult-based services. So we are now, because of the Affordable Care Act, beginning to look at how we can make most of our programs much more of a medical model. It's not intimidating, it's simply saying that we're being responsive to the opportunity within the Affordable Care Act. So we serve about 9,000 individuals per year. And we have a very defined volunteer program, even though our name is a misnomer. We do have a volunteer program so they enhance their social service delivery system. So when I went through the master's program at Portland State, I was immersed in the 40 principles of psychotherapy. That's what we offered in terms of practice.
Wow.
So it's nice to see the evolution of change.
Yeah. Well, so I'll say that excites me because my background, one of the things that I was blessed to do when I moved back to Oregon, so I'm from Boring, grew up most of my 18 years here in the Portland area. Spent a lot of time in Rockwood, and living out off of 182nd ultimately. When I came back here, I had the chance to work for the ESA programs, the Early Assessment and Support Alliance, a wraparound service program for young people 15 to 25 with psychosis. And again, thinking of reentry, what we had the opportunity to do was really listen to where people were coming from, and they were usually coming from inpatient units around the city. And I had the chance, because of our funding model, to really get time to listen and listen to people's central concerns, to their language, what it's like maybe from the inside out. And I think that these principles are contained within these old, what's become sort of considered, I think, a bit highbrow and stodgy, but I think contained within psychodynamic psychotherapy will find that the individual, as they, as they speak into life, is the most important. So that's why I continue to sort of champion this up at the university, and with my residents who, for many of them in their undergrad experience and in their medical school experience, this really just isn't talked about. So that's how Alicia and I had the chance to connect. What I thought we'd do is, I can run through, and this is going to be a review for, I think, most people in the room, and maybe most people on camera, but what we mean when we say psychotherapy, what we mean is a non-medical, and specifically, I could say that it is part of the medical tradition, but we're talking about a non-pharmacologic treatment of mental phenomena, of problems, of mental illnesses, and of life challenges. I don't think that you have to have a mental illness to engage in psychotherapy. The different types of psychotherapy. We have behavior therapies. A graded exposure would be a great example for obsessive compulsive disorder. Individuals with fear of heights who we talk about going on the tram, and then eventually we go to the top of the tram, and then eventually we ride the tram. So that's an example of a great behavior therapy. Cognitive therapy are things like trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or the use of David Byrne's Feeling Good book, which I think is perhaps the #1 most used book in psychology. I think it's still the Amazon bestseller 30 years later. Humanistic therapies, things like Jung's existential psychotherapy or Gestalt therapy, comes out of a philosophical tradition, really focused on phenomenology and on the present moment. And then psychodynamic psychotherapy really comes from psychoanalysis, which is a field that's about 110 years old. Some examples of contemporary forms of psychoanalytic psychotherapy are, sure, there's laying on the couch per the traditional model. So there's, you can see that there's Lucy